It's time for another blind taste test here on the Craft Beer channel, and today I'm going to be choosing my favourite Munich Helles, and in doing so hopefully settling one of the most fought over debates in the beer world, or indeed starting a bun fight. Or pretzel fight, or rotisserie chicken fight. I'm better at tasting beer. Hey beer geeks, been a minute. Now you're possibly coming to the end of all that dry January nonsense, and I don't know about you, but the only time I've done dry January, the thing I miss most was delicious, crisp, bittersweet Pilsner and Helles. And today I'm going to hopefully settle one of the biggest debates in the best of arguments that happen online around lager. So in front of me I have 5 Munich Helles. What does Munich Helles even mean? Well, let's start with Helles, which is a specific style of pale lager that was developed towards the end of the 19th century in Munich. In fact, by this very brewery here, Spaten, one of the most important breweries in the world according to me and my book, and hopefully lots of you now. Now the Helles was kind of a response to the Czech Pilsner historically. They saw how excited people were getting about everything that was happening just over the border in Pilsen, and they wanted to make their own version of super pale, super crisp lager. And the Helles was mostly the response. Now Germany went on to invent the German Pilsner, which is a bit hoppier, a bit crisper, a bit closer to what was happening in the Czech Republic. But the Helles has remained as its own beautiful style because it is a little bit different. Where the Pilsner might be really hoppy, it might have some sweetness that's balanced out by all of those delicious Czech hops or German hops. The Helles is more kind of malt forward, and lots of the flavours are malt derived. So what you can expect from a Helles, less of that kind of big hoppy aroma, less of that kind of caramelly, maybe decocted kind of character that you might get in a Pilsner, and more like just straight up delicious honeyed, digestive biscuit malt character with a little bit of lemon and fresh grass from mostly the Hallertau hops that have gone into these beers. Now what about the Münchner bit? So Münchner means, I guess, of Munich in English, and Munich is one of the few regions in the European Union that has its own designated beer styles with PGIs, so protected geographic indications, and the Helles falls within that definition. So we've got this style, the Helles, but a Munich Helles has to be made, there's a couple of things it has to do, but the main one is it has to be made using water from the shingle layer of groundwater underneath Munich. Now the Munich water that comes out of the tap in people's homes is pretty hard, but if you go into the shingle layer you get this lovely soft water that's perfect for making crispy, not very hoppy, bittersweet lagers, and that is what this PGI is kind of trying to protect. It's trying to say with the processes that are used in, well, many German lager breweries, but also with that unique water and with Bavarian hops, I think it has to be predominantly Bavarian hops to count, you'll come up with something that maybe you could taste the difference of. So today I'm going to be settling the argument of which of the big 6 breweries, or I should say big 5 here, because we haven't got Hacker-Pschorr because they don't seem to bottle or indeed really brew their Hell anymore, just their Gold, their 5.5% stronger one. So we're going to see which of the big 5 that are left has the best one, whether it's Spaten, Hofbräuhaus, Augustiner, Paulaner or Löwenbräu. And also my glamorous assistant has thrown in 3 completely random other Helles, which I won't know what they are. I will of course know what these are, just not the order they're poured in, to try and trip me up. But also at the end I'm going to see if I can pick out, or try to pick out, the beers that weren't from Munich, that don't have the PGI. Not because it makes the beer worse, but because it's fun and it's interesting to see if you can. But mostly this is about deciding which one is best, because you probably think it's this one, whereas I think this one's very underrated. Let's see if that stands up. Okay, so if you don't know the rules, I'm going to really quickly run through them now. I'm going to mark them all out of 30. That's for the aroma, that's for the palate, which is the flavour and the texture. Combined texture is important to a Helles, it's almost as much as flavour. And then the aftertaste, which is sort of the bitterness, the lingering finish, and of course overall impressions at the end. That comes up with a score of 30, which I'll use to rank them. But also at the end, I'm going to try and pick out the 3 that I thought weren't Munich Helles. Let's get stuck in to beer number 1. Wow, okay. So I was about to say, you know, I'm not going to say honey and lemon every time because they're all going to have that character, but this one has lemon. Loads of lemon. I mean, underneath there's kind of honey and digestive biscuit and what you'd expect, but good lord, that smells almost like a shandy. Inviting, maybe not quite to style. lighter than I expected, a little bit less honey than I'd want. Good whack of bitterness though, and I'm a fan of bitterness. It's not out of whack with the style, but it's at the top end, I reckon. So aroma, I think it's a little bit too lemony for me maybe, so I'm going to give that a 6. The palate was a little bit thin as well, just a little bit thin, but it had a nice kind of honey and lemon character to it. It did combine quite nicely, even if the aroma was dominated. Aftertaste, 7 as well. I like bitterness, it was right at the top end, but it was really nice. So that gives me a score of 20, which is conveniently where I think a good beer starts. So I'd go back to the bar for that. It's a decent beer. Right, what's this hazy nonsense then? Okay, so loads of honey there, none of that kind of lemon character. It smells very different. It's also got a kind of yeasty twang to it, which I'd expect. So almost like a Keller beer kind of thing, like, yeah, bordering on a little bit of banana-y isoamyl acetate thing. Oh yeah, lovely body, really lovely creamy body. Much, much lower bitterness. Very much what I'd expect for the style. Lovely beer, just I'm not sure about that slightly yeasty twang for a Helles. I'd imagine that's not a Munich Helles because I think these beers have to be, I think they have to be filtered to meet that PGI perhaps. Hazy, yeasty, but pleasant Keller beer? So Keller beers are kind of inspired by what the brewers would drink in the cellar, I guess. So it's not filtered, it's probably not lagered quite as long. But it's just full of flavour and character. It hasn't been kind of rounded out. Right, beer number 3. Quite a big hop aroma, but it's very, very grassy, almost meadowy, pastoral, bordering on farmyardy. Not Brett homebrewers. Don't be worried. Just a nice countryside kind of aroma, like really hop field aroma. Nice. Trying to squeeze some bitterness. There's not enough bitterness in that beer, but up until that point, I was really enjoying it. Loads of, yeah, fresh grass and honey and biscuit, but then just died on the finish. So, yeah, so pastoral, fresh, but no bitterness. Almost kind of really nice light lagery kind of territory there. Right, this one seems to have, yeah, probably the darkest colour of them all. Yeah, definitely the richest, darkest colour of them so far. So I'd expect a bit more malt depth there. Just throwing it around now. 3 beers in. Struggling to get a bit of head retention, but that could be my glassware. Yeah, so honey and almost kind of licoricey. I think probably the combination of like really lemony orange peel and honey has created that kind of licoricey character. Smells pretty good. Dry and sweet at the same time. How do I describe that? Feels kind of caramelly, which I think is coming from, you know, a slightly kind of ever so slightly darker, hotter kilned malt or something like that. But equally, that's bringing sweetness, but it is quite a dry beer. The aroma's not brilliant. The palate is a little bit thin as a result of that kind of dryness. It's pretty good, it's a 7, so darker, richer, but also a little drier and thinner. Those things feel contradictory, but that's what's happening in my mouth. So I've contradicted myself, possibly drunk a Radler, found a hazy hell, and given them all within one point of each other. Hopefully on the next 4, we'll start to answer some questions. Okay, round 2, I feel like I have to point out we did a lot less faffing between takes for this, so that's why the head is so much fluffier. The others did start like that, but I didn't get my arse in gear quick enough. So head retention not necessarily a lot better. I've also been told by the person that poured these beers that this one, number 3, was foaming over when they opened it. So either that bottle's been shaken or there's something fun happening with the yeast, and I note a gentle haze to that one as well. So goodness knows what I'm in for. Let's start. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. That is textbook grass, honey, lovely lemoniness. If you go in really deep though, a little bit of banana naughtiness, which any other day I would let slide and love it. I'd be like, it's character, it's uniqueness, but we're looking for the best Helles. But it's still the best aroma I've had today. Lovely body, lovely combination of ingredients, just lacking a little bit of bitterness that I'd want. Gorgeous and fluffy and full of flavour, full of honey and lemon. But that's a stunning beer. Stunning aroma, fluffy but crispy. Man, lager is full of contradictions, I love it. Lacking bitterness for me, but I'm a bitterness monster. Okay, we have an outlier now at last. I feel like I've smelled that before. One of the other 4 beers from the first round smells a lot like it. But it smells really, really nice. Lots of lovely lemon. It's so lemony. Like, people talk about German hops as being, you know, not quite UK levels of sort of muted kind of earthy spice and nettles and that kind of thing. But we think of them as muted. These beers are popping. Well, okay, so probably the sweetest one that we've had. Really gets you around the sides. Yeah, really sweet. Not unpleasant, just completely different to the others. And I would find that probably tiring after a pint. But the aroma's great. The palate, I'm gonna give it a 6. And it needs more bitterness to round that out, so that's a 6 as well. It's one of the issues I really have with style guidelines, things like the BJCP, because although, you know, they have these parameters, but that's not always helpful when it comes to appraising specific beers, because that one is well within the parameters, but as a beer it's just too sweet because there's not enough bitterness. But you could say, oh, it's a perfect Helles from the numbers, but it's not a perfect beer to actually drink. Okay, penultimate beer. God, these are easy when there's only 8 of them. What? Lavender? Smells of lavender. And green tea. Am I going mad? Just give me a sec. No, still lavender. Okay. Lavender and green tea. Smells like something you drink in a cup of tea before you go to bed. Something your nan drinks. Nans get more reference on this channel than they should. Never mind. Very weird. Not very good. It's got nice body to it. It's got loads of flavour to it, but it's just not, you know, if you were served that in a pint in a pub, you'd be baffled by it. I can't even say that it's got like kind of Weissbier character to it because it doesn't. It feels distinctly un-German. It's bordering on Belgian. Yeah, it's 5s across the board. It's very weird. Lavender? Fluffy but wax. Just feels flabby. Lacks structures, as I've put it. Right, final beer. Wow, okay. Time flies when you're having fun and drinking Belgian beer. Okay. New aroma again. So on closer inspection, tiny hint of sulphur. Again, I'm making it sound like I'm talking about Brett, but quite funky, like the sulphur and the fresh grass, like maybe slightly rotting grass, but in an unctuous, nice way. I'm a weird man. And then honey and lemon, and it's just got something, I don't know, like a little bit of yeast profile or something that's just making it smell entirely different. But I'm here for it. And I'm also starting to suspect what this beer is. A little bit of kind of doughiness, which you'd expect in sort of British bitters and stuff, but definite kind of that combination of yeast, which is obviously a doughy flavour, and bread, and malt, which is, you know, similar to wheat in flavour. Barley, similar to wheat in flavour. Real lovely doughiness, slightly funky kind of green hop aroma, and then honey and lemon. It's clearly a Helles, but there's something else fun, going on. I think it's really nice. It's got character. It's unique. I am going to mark down the aroma because it is a little bit off style, but the other bits, I think the palate and the flavour, it all comes together, that slightly odd aroma. And then I would want a tiny bit more bitterness and it to be a tiny bit cleaner. So I'm just going to do it a little bit now. So that one probably comes second. I said I think I know what it is. I think it's probably Augustiner, because I've always found Augustiner a little bit kind of funky and unusual and sulphurous in a way that none of the other beers I've had in Munich have ever been. So that would be my guess. So that's it. That's all of the beers tasted. 5 PGI Munich Helles, Munich Helles, and 3 not. It's very, very clear to me that 2 of these are not. So the challenge is going to be finding that third one. I'm fairly certain the one that smelled like lavender is not a Munich Helles, so I'm going to grey that one. There was also another one that was funny. Oh yeah, the other hazy one. I don't think you can have a hazy Munich Helles. I think it has to be filtered. I certainly know, because of what Geisinger have gone through to try and get their beer served at Oktoberfest, that their Helles has to be filtered. So I'm going to also take out the hazy one. So the last one, I'm looking at outliers in my notes basically. Lemony, bit light, nicely bitter, sounds like a Helles. Pastoral, fresh, no bitterness, sounds like a Helles. Darker, richer, but also drier and thinner, does not sound like a Helles. I think that is also not a PGI Munchner Helles. Okay, let's get the bottles out, reveal the order, and then duck and run. Okay, so you can see the answer. Well, you've been seeing the answers all along, and I'm starting to see some of my mistakes, although I know that was last, so that's exciting. I'm going to unhide the columns and see what the exact order was. Here we go. Okay, so the winner overall. Oh yeah, I should put them into order as well. The winner is Teggers. Delighted to see this in here. It's one of my favourite beers in the world. I'm always delighted when one of my favourite beers in the world does well in the blind taste test. What did I put? Stunning aroma, fluffy but crispy, lacking bitterness. Also, I'd want more bitterness from my Tegs. That's a lesson. Now, go home, you're drunk, Johnny. It's a perfect beer. So next was Augustiner, which I clocked was the last one that I tried. I marked it down on the aroma because it was a little bit funky, but that's what gave it away that it's Augustiner. So what do you do when a beer is not quite to style because it's unique, but that makes it a better beer than all the others because it is unique? Don't know. It's why beer tasting, beer judging is a bit of a flawed kind of concept. What next? Hofbräu Original came in. Oh, okay, so it's drawing also with Spaten Hell. That's a surprise. I love Hofbräu as a place. I did not necessarily rate the Helles. But clearly it's a decent beer. What did I say? Lemon. Oh, so this was the one that was super lemony. Yeah, it really is. And you know, individually, when you're just tasting that, you mark it down. But again, this is what makes these beers unique and makes them stand out. So kudos Hofbräu. Then we have Spaten, which I think is a really nice beer. It's arguably, along with Carlsberg, the most important brewery to have ever existed. Eyinger Hell was hazy and it doesn't surprise me that Eyinger was hazy, but I thought it would do better because I do love Eyinger beers. And that's probably, if anything's going to upset people, it's probably me saying that was only 19. Paulaner Hell, which I thought, yeah, so I got Eyinger and Schneider's Hell correct, not from Munich, but I put Paulaner Hell, which is... no, I think Augustiner is the best-selling Helles in Munich, but I think that Paulaner Helles is probably the best-selling Helles in Germany. And I claim that it shouldn't have its PGI, flavour-wise. I also used to import it. That was literally my job at Cave Direct. I was marketing for Paulaner, bringing that in. I mean, it's still a decent beer at 19 points, but just up against the others, it didn't feel quite as Hellesy as some of the others, including the Löwenbräu, which didn't do particularly well. Familiar, so what did I say, lemony, bit too sweet. Maybe it was the first one it was like, so we could say that Löwenbräu is a bit like Hofbräu, but not as good. And then the bottom one is the Schneider's Hell, which I'm going to have to go back in on. So not a brewery that's obviously famous for its lagers. It's known as a Hefeweizen brewery. Yeah, just incredibly perfumed. What It really does smell like if you just brewed a Belgian wit beer, but just with barley, no wheat, no orange peel, no coriander. That is what I would imagine it would smell like. And I know that in isolation at home, if you've just got a bottle of that, you're probably like, I don't know what you're talking about. But when you put it next to all these classic, all these mostly classic Helles, it smells of lavender. It smells like a Belgian wit beer. And I don't know what to tell you other than that. So as always with this blind taste test, some real surprises along the way, but mostly crushing inevitability, by which I mean not crushing to the soul, but just crushability, I guess is what I should say, because if I'd seen that this was going to be poured for me, I'd have immediately gone, well, I think that's going to win, and it did, and that is both reassuring from a me knowing my own palate point of view, but also because I don't think that's an unusual opinion to have. I think people mostly recognise that Tegs is possibly the best Helles in the world. And if you have to pick your favourite Munich Helles, I would still say Augustiner. And I have had arguments with Brad in which I've tried to claim that Augustiner isn't, that I prefer Spartan, and indeed I've said at times that I prefer Paulaner, and clearly I was wrong. So apologies, Brad. The only thing left to say is please go to Munich. It's a beautiful city full of lovely people, incredible pubs and bars. The Augustiner Keller is one of the best pubs in the world, and you can learn all about that in my book as well because we go there. But also go to Tegernseher, which I think maybe needs to be added to the craft beer channel. Wish we could go shoot their list.